Hi everyone, I'm back for my third toddler lesson video, and this week we're going to be in Daniel 6 talking about Daniel and the lion's den. So for our snack, I just took a paper plate, or you could do a piece of paper and put it on a plate, and you draw a lion face, and hard to do on an angle, but then you take your food, which you could do, I'm doing Cheez-Its, but you could do pretzel sticks or orange slices or sliced peppers, sliced strawberries, really whatever you want. Cheese puffs, very easy. And you can let your kids spread it around the face and try to make a lion mane. I can't really do it on an angle. So they can make their face and then they can eat the hair per se while you're reading the lesson. So I will get started. Things were not looking good for God's people. They had been captured and taken far from home, and now they were slaves of the king of Babylon. But God had not left his people. He was with them, and he was looking after them. Daniel loved God and obeyed him. Now God made Daniel able to understand lots of difficult things. So it wasn't long before the king of Babylon noticed him. King Darius liked how clever Daniel was, so he made Daniel his most important helper of all and put him in charge of lots of other helpers. But the other helpers didn't like this. They wanted the king to like them best. They wanted to get rid of Daniel, so they spied on Daniel. They tried to find things wrong with Daniel, things they could tell the king. But there weren't any. None. They couldn't find anything at all. Except there was just the one thing. Every day, 3 times a day, without fail, no matter what, Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and prayed. They smiled to themselves. Let's get the king to make a law. No one is allowed to pray to anyone except the king. Daniel won't obey this law, and he will be punished. They were pleased with themselves for being so clever and hurried off to tell the king. The king liked their idea. He didn't know they were tricking him, so he made it into a law. Everyone must pray only to me. If you don't, the lions will have you for their dinner. Daniel heard this. He knew it was wrong to pray to anyone except God. He had to do what God said, whatever it cost him, even if it meant he would die. So Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and prayed. That's just what the bad men knew Daniel would do. They skipped straight off to tell the king, "Oh, your most glittering highness, your law says, does it not, that everyone must pray to you alone, sire?" "Yes," said the king. "Oh, magisterial brightness, then correct us if we're wrong, but it would seem that Daniel is praying to God, not to you." The king was sad. He had been tricked. He didn't want to hurt Daniel, but he couldn't change his law, and so he let the soldiers throw Daniel to the lions. "May your God, who you love so much, rescue you," the king said. The king went back to his palace, but he didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. He tossed and turned until finally, at the first glimmer of dawn, he leaped out of bed and ran straight to the den. "Daniel," he cried, "has your God rescued you?" "Yes," Daniel shouted. "God sent an angel to close the lions' mouths." Speaking of lions. And there, resting his head on Daniel's lap, was the biggest lion, purring like a little kitten. The king brought Daniel out of the den. "Look," he said, "Daniel doesn't even have a scratch." The king made a new law. Daniel's God is the true God, the God who rescues. Pray to him instead. God would keep on rescuing his people, and the time was coming when God would send another brave hero like Daniel who would love God and do what God said, whatever it cost him, even if it meant he would die, and together they would pull off the greatest rescue the world has ever known. There's Daniel, snuggling with the lion. All right. So what did Daniel do to get in trouble? He prayed. Who did they tell him to pray to? The king. But who did Daniel actually pray to? He prayed to God. So where did they put Daniel? They put him in the lion's den. But did the lions eat him? No. God saved Daniel. He had the angels shut the lions' mouths. So, our first point for this lesson is that Daniel prayed only to God, and so should we. He should be the only God that we have. And our second point is that God kept Daniel safe because Daniel obeyed him and prayed only to him, like God commands us. So, if you want to do a memory verse to go along with this, Daniel 6:10 is 3 times a day Daniel got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God just as he had done before. And for our craft for this lesson, once again, back to paper plates. Take a paper plate and you cut out the middle of it and you cut some little strips of paper in different colors. It doesn't have to be the same colors that I used, but like 2 inches long, like 1 inch wide, and you glue them all the way around so you can have your own lion mane and you can practice your lion roar and you can play around. The kids can play and they can pretend to be a lion. And if you want an activity, you can make a fort out of blankets and you can pretend to be a lion in the lion's den. And if you have siblings, you could have, one could be Daniel, one could be the lion, and you could take turns and you could act out the story. And if you have been watching these videos and following along, don't feel like you have to do all of my suggestions by any means. Some kids aren't crafty, some kids just like the activity, but I think picking at least one is nice because it helps make the story stick a little bit better in little ones' minds. But I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope your kids enjoy it, and I'll see you next week. Bye.